EPA, in 2010 Americans generated 250 million tons of garbage, which equates to an average of 4.3 pounds per person per day. The Spokane Waste-to-Energy facility offers one way to deal with this problem. The Spokane Waste-to-Energy plant opened in 1991 at the cost of $110 million. It was publicly and privately funded to provide a solution to Spokane's garbage problem. Before the plant, all of the garbage was sent to landfills within the Spokane County, which was creating negative effects on the aquifer below, and thus the health of Spokane residents. The plant currently handles all of the garbage in the county and burns 800 tons of garbage per day, reducing its volume by 90%. Once it's burned, the remaining waste is shipped to a landfill in Roosevelt, Washington. The heat from the fire is used to create enough electricity to provide light for 13,000 to 20,000 homes. And all of the gases are filtered, so the plant only emits steam. This is the tipping floor, where all of the garbage is dropped off. The crane mixes the waste to provide consistent fuel for the fires, and then transports it to the hoppers, which lead to the boilers. If the plant ever receives more garbage than it can burn in a day, it can be stored here to be burned on a later, slower day. The pit is 40 feet deep, 142 feet long, and 50 feet from front to back, and it can hold 5,000 tons of trash, or about a week's worth of fuel. The control room is where all the parts of the facility are monitored. Using the Bailey Network 90 system, the entire plant can be operated by only 5 people. There are 2 furnaces that continually burn garbage 24/7. They reach temperatures of 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, leaving behind only scrap metal and ash. The energy from the heat of the fire is used to create steam, which then spins the turbines to create electrical energy. The electricity is sold to Avista and entered into the electrical grid. After the gases from the fire are sequestered in the spray dryer and bag house, the steam is filtered and released through the stack. The steam is monitored to make sure it meets national standards. As for the remaining ash, it is sent to the ash handling building, where it is then exported to the Roosevelt landfill. Waste-to-energy practices have decreased from 34 million tons in 2000 to 29 million tons in 2010. We sat down with the Education Outreach Coordinator at Spokane Waste-to-Energy to figure out why this is.
I think there is a lot of concern about environmental impacts of combusting garbage, whereas there are probably equally serious environmental impacts for landfilling. But landfilling, we have a lot of space in the United States to bury garbage. We've been doing it for a long time, so there's a track record. And it is less expensive. So I think when you have the combination of the expense of what it takes for a community to invest in a waste energy plant versus landfilling it when there's cheaper options, and then environmental concerns, because we can talk about that when we go through the facility, that you've got to deal with the ash and the smoke and cleaning the air before it leaves. So. And then how do you dispose of that ash? So, there's no real good way of dealing with garbage except making less. Mm-hmm. And so we followed the EPA's hierarchy of garbage management, where reduction is the first one. So reduction and reuse is the first. Then it gets down into recycling and composting. Then energy recovery, where we fall into. And then it's, landfilling is the last, least favorite way of disposing of garbage. And it's interesting history for this facility. It's the only one of its kind in Washington State. And Spokane County, I guess, is unique in some ways, if you're pro waste energy, having the foresight to deal with garbage in our own backyard. I mean, before that, we have 5 landfills in Spokane County, which the garbage was being buried. And if you know anything about our geology here, you know, we are living on top of our aquifer. That's where we get our water, some of the best in the world. And, you know, landfills are just a hole in the ground. You're putting garbage there, and we were having a problem with the leachate. As the water and the snow gets in the garbage, it percolates down. All of that garbage gunk gets with it. It goes down right into our drinking water. And so it was really through litigation. I mean, people were starting to get contaminated wells because they lived near landfills, and they started suing the county. And so they decided, okay, that's not a viable option here. You know, we've got to do something. So we still have those landfills in the county. We are still paying to monitor them and to make sure that they're not continuing to pollute. You know, whether it's the leachate going into the groundwater or it's methane gas too, because rotting organics give off methane, which is 20 times worse greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide.
I think that was more of a push from like the people of Spokane because they're of the like impacts that the landfills are having, or was it more of like the government that decided to clean up because of all the like?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I think a lot of the political leaders were torn. Because again, reacting to, you know, we're polluting our own land. Is there a better way? Waste energy.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a way of reducing that amount that we have to deal with. We can handle that in our own county. We're not shipping our problem to somewhere else. And you know, we might, if we work together as a county, we could get enough garbage that it would keep the plant operating. Because that's another thing, that if you know you build a plant, you also have to make sure you've got the fuel source to operate. And so all the communities in the area and the unincorporated part of the county did get together and sign interlocal agreements and everything that would ensure flow control, that all of the garbage would come here for 20 years or for whatever length of the contract. Mm-hmm. And so I think communities need to look at that too. Do they have enough garbage to make it economically feasible to run a plant like this? You know, as well as the land. But 20 years ago, so you had some of the politicians saying, "Yeah, let's do that here. We can do that." But there was a lot of pushback from community members thinking, "No, you're burning garbage in our backyards. You're going to poison us. You know, we're having an industrial power facility. Something could go wrong, and then we're going to have to pay for that."
Do you think it's a miscommunication that the community's not informed as much, or how do you think that?
I think a lot of that is, you know, look at historically incinerators that all they did was burn garbage and not necessarily generate electricity from it. Yeah, there was a learning curve. I mean, they just burned garbage and the smoke went up into the air, and it was very toxic and damaging, polluting, poisoning people. But the technology has really changed and improved over the years.